Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Mzembi's continued incarceration is the kind of political theater that only Zimbabwe could stage. Tragic, absurd, and dripping with irony. Let's not waste time pretending Zimwaves TV has suddenly developed a soft spot for yesterday's tormentors. No, we don't do that here. We don't cry for the former ministers who happily watched ordinary citizens get clobbered in the streets as long as their cushy seats in government remained intact. We don't send sympathy cards to those who chose silence when their voices could have made a difference. But here is the catch. When even your old enemy is dragged into the mud, when he is brutalized and stripped of basic dignity, there comes a point when you simply have to say, enough is enough. And Zimbabwe has reached that point with Walter Mzembi. In his mind, Mzembi thought dialogue was Zimbabwe's missing medicine. There were negotiations done, negotiations behind the back while he was in exile. And these negotiations led Mzembi to believe that he could come back to Zimbabwe and sort out the relationship with his former comrades. He convinced himself that if only the politicians would stop screaming at each other and sit down to talk, maybe, just maybe, the country could crawl out of its economic grave. He wasn't dreaming of another coup, another bloody election, or another tired slogan. No, he thought the cure was in the dialogue. So, armed with that naive conviction, he abandoned the leafy comfort of Lusaka, where he had a promising business, international contacts, and the kind of quiet that money can buy, and decided to roll the dice back home. He thought bygones were bygones. He thought his access to capital and diplomatic ties would make him the perfect bridge builder between Zimbabwe's warring elites. He even dared to imagine a new Zimbabwe. Leaders and citizens working on one shared vision instead of the clown show of 2030 sloganeering. But in Zimbabwe, good intentions are like lambs walking into a lion's den. Instead of finding dialogue, Mzembi walked straight into a trap. The assurances whispered to him by his so-called intermediaries turned out to be nothing but lies written in disappearing ink. 62 days ago, he was snatched in a dramatic military-style fashion at Harare International Airport. The crocodile does not forget. Forget about the red carpet. He got the steel shackles. Forget about a handshake. He got handcuffs. Forget about dialogue. He got detention. Since then, he has rotted behind bars without trial, treated not as a man with ideas, but as a warning to others. Step into Zimbabwe with hope, and we will crush it. The state has no case, none. His co-accused were cleared way back in 2019. If this was about justice, it would have ended then. But this is not about justice. It's about vengeance and control. The system thrives on reminding everyone from ex-ministers to opposition activists that the state's greatest weapon is not the law, but the ability to break it with impunity. Mzembi is not being prosecuted, he is being persecuted. And the silence around it is as deafening as it is dangerous. And here's the bitter pill. This is what happens in a system where brutality has no expiry date. Today it is Walter Mzembi. Yesterday it was nameless activist. Tomorrow it could be anyone with the audacity to suggest that Zimbabwe deserves peace, dialogue, or unity. The regime is teaching us all a lesson. Don't dare dream of a different Zimbabwe. Don't dare hope for reconciliation. Don't dare suggest that power can be shared. But we at Zimwaves will say it plainly. Enough. Zimbabwe cannot keep recycling the script of cruelty, cannot keep throwing people into prison cells without trial, cannot keep pretending that oppression is governance. Justice delayed is justice denied. But in Zimbabwe, Justice isn't just delayed, it's murdered in cold blood and buried without a funeral. And the longer this cycle continues, the closer the state itself gets to being buried under the very cruelty it dishes out. So here's the reminder. Today it's Mzembi, a man who once turned a blind eye to suffering. Tomorrow it could be you, your neighbor, or anyone brave enough to think differently. If you think this system spares anyone, you are not paying attention. Subscribe to Zimwaves TV, where tyranny doesn't get the luxury of silence. We tear it apart, we ridicule it, and we remind you that silence is never an option. And now the question is, do you think Zimbabwe can ever break this endless cycle of brutality? Comment yes below or no and tell us why. Your voice might just be the beginning of the dialogue they are so afraid of.